Thank you for joining One Neighborhood Builders for our monthly Fresh Fridays series. I'm Allie Steinberg from One Neighborhood Builders. If you'd like to turn on captions for this discussion, you can do so. First, you can click captions on the bottom of your screen. If you don't see captions, go to those three dots on the side in that first picture and click where it says more. And then you can click captions and then choose your language and then click show captions. So we have those steps right there. I'll leave them up in case folks need a second with those. And my colleague Kyle is going to put some instructions in the chat. We launched this Fresh Friday series to create space for practitioners, community members, policymakers, and all other interested folks to learn and share about community development, including through workforce development and economic mobility. So before we get started, just a few notes on logistics for the day. First, please note that we'll be recording this session as we intend to share it with interested folks who were not able to join us this morning. Second, if you have questions or comments while one of our panelists is speaking, please feel free to leave it in that Q&A section, and we will try to incorporate it into the session. Towards the end of the session, also, we will have an open Q&A, so during which you'll have the floor to ask those questions as well. Third, we want to remind you that if you hear a phrase or an acronym you aren't familiar with, we encourage you to ask about it in the chat or in the Q&A section. My colleague Kyle McKendall will be watching the chat and will jump in as he's able. This is a space for learning, so we encourage you to use it as such. And fourth, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Awesome. So today we're going to hear from some incredible panelists who are advancing critical workforce development efforts in Rhode Island. So Shelby Mack is the Chief Apprenticeship Expansion Officer of Building Futures. Claudia Cardone is the Co-Director of Education at Progreso Latino. And Dr. Tanya Glantz is the Executive Director of Rhode Island College's Institute for Education and Healthcare and the Administrator for the Community Health Worker Association of Rhode Island, also known as CHWARI. So thank you all so much for being here. Now let's hear from our panel. So we're going to start with Shelby. So Shelby, Building Futures offers a range of programs, including pre-apprenticeship programs for construction trades and apprenticeship programs for non-trade professions. Can you explain to us what apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs are, what they look like for Building Futures, and the impact of these programs, and why Building Futures thinks they're important for advancing equity? There's a lot in that question, so feel free, but want to make sure we're all starting on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that question. And thanks so much for having me. And it's really an honor to be on the panel with Claudia and Tanya. So looking forward to the conversation. So yeah, what is registered apprenticeship? I know before I came to Building Futures, I kind of had this conception of apprenticeship as maybe a medieval blacksmith or a cobbler or something that was only in the building trades. And all of that is kind of on the right track because apprenticeship is a very old form of workforce development. But formal, like modern registered apprenticeship is actually a national system that's extremely high quality. It was established in the 1930s. And any occupation that takes at least a year to learn can set up a registered apprenticeship. So under this system, registered apprenticeship has a few key elements. Number one, it's employment from day one and over the course of 1 to usually 5 or so years, depending on the occupation, you work your way to full competency in that occupation through a structured learning progression that includes both on-the-job learning and related instruction. Every apprentice has a mentor or mentors who help them progress through. And it's agreement between the employer and the employee that includes wage progression at key points in the apprenticeship. It results in a portable credential for every apprentice that qualifies you to work in that occupation anywhere. And you asked about equity, Allie. Equity is really a key element, and it's a result of implementing registered apprenticeship because it creates more equitable workplaces that broaden the pool of people who are eligible by decreasing entry qualifications, and it creates transparency around what's needed to advance. And implemented at scale, beyond the employer level, it can create a more equitable education and workforce system. We all know we're facing really remarkable challenges here in Rhode Island. Nowhere in Rhode Island does minimum wage enable you to rent affordably. 1 in 10 of our neighbors are experiencing poverty, and many, many more of us are kind of struggling to make ends meet. And registered apprenticeship can really create those equitable pathways to family sustaining careers. And that just brings me to pre-apprenticeship, which is a program that is designed to prepare people to enter registered apprenticeship by teaching foundational skills, industry exposure, industry readiness, and also providing the wraparound social services that can help prepare people's life conditions to succeed once they get to that registered apprenticeship. And at Building Futures, we've seen the impact of both of those models in really amazing ways. We run a 5-week building trades pre-apprenticeship. Now more than 500 people have gone through that program, have been placed in family sustaining careers. Every single one of those people coming in was experiencing poverty. 80% are people of color, 37% are formerly incarcerated, all making family sustaining wages now in lifelong careers. And we've also built registered apprenticeships outside the trades with partners like Tanya at Rhode Island College, and nearly 2,500 Rhode Islanders have gone through those programs. And I'll just lift up one of our newest programs, which is the teacher registered apprenticeship, which now paraprofessionals and teachers assistants can work their way up to a full teaching credential while working, going to class in a way that works for their schedules, and really opening up that pathway to that credential that's really had some barriers to it in the past. And that's also a really great partnership that we have with Rhode Island College and the state AFT, Rhode Island Department of Education, and local education agencies. So I'll leave it there for now.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Shelby. That's so exciting. And I really appreciate your giving us that history of the registered apprenticeship programs and how you're using that model to kind of build on it to decrease barriers to some really much needed professions and allow folks to be getting family sustaining wages. That's amazing. So now we'll turn to Claudia. So Progreso Latino operates workforce development programs as well as educational programs. Could you give us an overview of the workforce development programs you offer? Why Progreso Latino decided to focus on mental health specifically? And could you describe the impact of those programs?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Claudia Cordon, the Co-Director of Adult Education at Progreso Latino, and I'm really happy to share that at Progreso Latino, we are so proud of our workforce development program in mental health, which we launched in the fall of 2020. The program was created in response to the urgent need for more multilingual and diverse professionals in the mental health field, and a need that was made even more critical during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we also saw the urgency of breaking stigma around mental health issues. We saw the need for stable jobs and career pathways for our community. And we saw an evident brain drain for foreign trained professionals with credentials who move to the United States and do not practice their career or are not involved in their training. So with these three elements, Progreso Latino responded with a bilingual, fully online mental health job training program that leads to a national certification in mental health first aid. Students learn foundational concepts of psychology and mental health while also reinforcing oral communication in English. We do target ELL, so English language learners. And so we bring in the psychology, foundational concepts, mental health, but also the oral communication in English, practice in oral communication. And all of this while moving towards mental health first aid certification. Through our program, we have been able to move the needle to diversify the mental health field linguistically and culturally. We've been able to connect the English language learners, foreign trained professionals, also career changers, career starters into jobs. And we're very proud also to break stigma and foster empathy within our community. And I am so happy to share and very proud to share that throughout the course of our program, we have been able to certify 103 bilingual mental health first aiders.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for giving that history. And I love how it was how this kind of moment of crisis around the pandemic created this really beautiful program for you all. And And I love how it was really responding to a really critical need you all were seeing. And I loved how you told me when we were talking before this, how one of the people who went through the program is now one of the trainers, which I just think is a really awesome story as well of now they're encouraging other people to get involved. And I think that's always great. Seeing someone who went through your program as your teacher is always really great. So thank you for sharing that. So now we're going to turn to Tanya. So Tanya, you're the executive director of Rhode Island Colleges, or RICS, Institute for Education and Healthcare, and the administrator for the Community Health Worker Association of Rhode Island. Could you tell us a bit about the programs that the Institute offers and the impact of those programs that you've seen so far?
Absolutely. And let me just start by saying the panel that you've convened today is a perfect example of how IEH and Shwari exist. We exist in partnership. Building Futures has been a critical partner in developing our 3, and we have 1 coming, apprenticeship program. And Progresso Latino has been an amazing employer partner who has sent their staff, as well as hiring staff who've gone through our training and apprenticeship programs. And I think that this is an opportunity to reflect on how we are better together, and especially during these challenging times. It's just a reminder for me that everything we do has reciprocal impacts, and that having a strong team is going to get us through whatever it is that we're in and is coming our way. And with that, I thought I would start just with the mission statement of the Institute, because although we've been around since 2016, unless you've worked directly with us, you might not even know that we exist. But essentially, we exist to build bridges that connect the college to the broader community, specifically through innovative education, career pathways, and workforce transformation that really works to impact positively the care continuum at the staff level, the employer partner level, and also most importantly at the client level. And so for me, having the Community Health Work Association, affectionately referred to as Shwari, took me a while to actually be able to say that, Shwari, having it housed here is really critical, because the work of community health workers intersects on every level with the healthcare and behavioral healthcare community. Also has an opportunity for us to support the workforce, as well as those workforce impacts on the communities that they serve. So it's a beautiful partnership, and I feel very fortunate to be leading it. And some of the examples that we impact and that we're developing together include specialized training programs, whether they be in community health work, school-based mental health. We do a lot of work in the space of working with older adults, and we do a lot of intersecting curricula that has applicability for folks across the workforce. One of the ones that comes to mind is our HIV for direct service staff, and that we have seen folks from every different discipline coming to that program. The other thing that's been a really critical part of our work is not only trying to provide training to bolster the workforce so that they can do the important work that needs to be done, but recognizing those equity issues that were already mentioned at the beginning of our conversation this morning. And we too believe strongly that training alone is not enough, that it has to be created in partnership with employers, both employers of incumbent staff or employers of staff looking for positions. And we have really been successful using career ladder programs that for agencies that weren't quite ready for apprenticeships, that allowed specialized training and promotion with wage increases. Our favorite kind of career ladder opportunity truly has been apprenticeships, because we've been able to co-design specialized curriculum with employer partners and with the help of Building Futures that prepares people incrementally to be able to move into the roles that employer partners really need them to be in to provide the services to vulnerable populations. And so right now, for folks who might be interested, we are wrapping up a behavioral health case management apprenticeship that will continue to be available once the grant ends, a community health work apprenticeship We have just gotten funding from HRSA for a second year of our peer recovery specialist apprenticeship. And I believe I got an email from Building Futures, Amy Weinstein, that our standards are going before the committee for review. So we're really excited about that. And that apprenticeship focuses on peer recovery specialists supporting families impacted by addiction. And we're working on an apprenticeship to support staff working in long-term care settings with older adults. And so those are just some of the areas that we're working in. And there's never a dull moment here. If anyone is interested in more information, I'm happy to share my email later on for you to reach out. Thanks so much, Allie.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Really appreciate the overview and also touching on the partnerships piece. That was something that really stood out to me in conversations with all of you, is how you all work together and how you all consider your work in the context of broader systems, both in terms of the individuals going through the program, but also the broader workforce development ecosystem that exists and employer ecosystem that exists in Rhode Island. So now, Shelby, I'm hoping you could talk a little bit more about that, about Building Futures work on systems change and what that's looked like a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Tanya and Claudia, I just love the way that you're painting this picture of our collective partnerships around the state and the way that together we've really been able to, with the beauty of Rhode Island and us being so small, really create connections that can lift up our communities together. And I think to give a good example of this kind of systems change, I'll go back to the beginning of Building Futures, founded in 2007. We were founded in the middle of a recession, right? Like there were not construction jobs, period, let alone jobs for first-year apprentices who were going through our pre-apprenticeship. So in order to be able to place people, we needed to create systems change and organize industry stakeholders, construction end users, unions, contractors at all levels, to come together and agree to create those first job opportunities for apprentices, even though it may not have been in their immediate economic interests, understanding that in the long term, it was in the interest of the industry to be building the workforce of tomorrow, knowing we would come out of the recession, knowing that we would have an aging workforce and that people would be retiring in the midst of this recession, and the industry would be in trouble if it didn't commit to making those hiring opportunities. So that was kind of the birth of our apprentice utilization program, which is the other end of our pre-apprenticeship. It really enables us to place people into those first career opportunities and work their way through their apprenticeships and complete it. And it exists to today. So it exists in a couple of different forms, but one is in the city of Providence that actually has an ordinance that requires that city-funded projects at a certain level hire apprentices to work 15% of labor hours in the city. And that is a partnership, again, between the city, between contractors, between Building Futures to create those career opportunities for Providence residents in particular, and ensure that development happening in Providence creates opportunities for people who live here and work here. So that's one example of systems change, coming together, really transforming the way that elements of a system work together in order to change the results. And again, it's all about partnership. None of this is anything that we can do alone. We all have to work together to make these changes happen because they're difficult and they require a lot of shared effort, shared vision, and just rolling up our sleeves, which the women on this panel know a lot about.
Yes, thank you so much, Shelby. I really appreciate your walking us through that specific example. That's really exciting to hear about. So now, Claudia, how do you see Progresso Latino's workforce development work fitting into the organization's broader mission and relating to the larger systems that you all are seeing?
At Progresso Latino, let me start with our mission because it has everything to do with the work that we do on a day-to-day basis. And our mission is to empower Rhode Island's Latino and immigrant communities to achieve greater self-sufficiency and socioeconomic progress. We have been doing that for 48 years this year. We're very proud of our work. And the way that we do this is by offering transformational programs that not only support individual growth, but also drive meaningful social change. And returning to our bilingual mental health program, it's a true reflection of that because it is our mission in action. By preparing participants for stable jobs and long-term careers, our program fosters both professional and personal growth. But more importantly, it strengthens entire systems of care by ensuring that bilingual, multicultural professionals are present where they are needed the most. And they're needed the most in human services and mental health settings. In this way, our program is more than a workforce development. Just like Shelby and Tanya have said, it is a lot more than just a workforce development program. For all of us, it is about equity, it's about access, and it's about building a community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Ah, I love that. And I love how you all are singing the same tune. And I think that just speaks to how collaborative this work is and needs to be. And I really appreciate that. So the kind of similar kind of question for Tanya. Can you explain how the Institute and Shwari relate to each other and relate to the broader systems around CHWs and healthcare workers?
The first kind of cultivation was a reframing of what healthcare is, and recognizing that healthcare is not just the traditional hospital or PCP office. It's also about giving people access to meeting their basic needs, behavioral health, making sure that communities are safe for them. And so as we started to look at the needs, it required us to develop partnerships across the entire care continuum with the goal of promoting health and wellness in whichever way a community was really was needing it. And in doing that, one of the things that we have been really careful to do, and I want to just give a little recognition to the creator of the Institute, Dr. Marianne Raimondo, who's now the Dean of the School of Business. It was her vision that created IEH and also led to Shwari coming in here. And one of the things that she recognized as a longtime practitioner herself in the private sector was all of the silos. And so she wanted our institute to be a place that broke down the silos and brought people together in a shared dialogue that could co-inform both the people with the ability to do something to respond to a need, but more importantly, to hear from the employer partners, the staff, and the client systems, what those needs were, what was working, what wasn't working. And so everything that we do through both IEH and Shwari is co-informed by those partners across that very kind of rich trifecta system, the clients, staff, and employer partners. And it's also a real advantage for us being a partner and situated at Rhode Island College, because the college is recognized for its academic excellence, subject matter experts. And so to be able to develop programs that are either certificate programs or that have academic credits and have the ability to move people along the continuum in their own job journey and to raise the bar of excellence in organizations makes us a critical partner with traditional hospitals, community-based organizations, community health centers, also other higher ed partners. Right now, we have a partnership through EOHHS, Executive Office of Health and Human Services, with several community-based organizations to help fund people getting graduate degrees in behavioral health disciplines, because there's such a need for that in the field. And Claudia mentioned that at the beginning with the mental health first aid. So really taking our cue and direction from what our partners and what the state of Rhode Island needs so that we can be responsive, not just in the moment, but in a very proactive and intentional way that has a long-term impact and benefit to the workforce, to places that are hiring or who want to keep their staff. When staff feel confident in the work that they're doing and they're supported, they stay in those agencies, which benefits not just the employer, but especially those clients who form these meaningful relationships. And so we feel that we might play a little role in being the glue that connects all of those people together in systems.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanya, for that. I really appreciate kind of how it all connects together and why it's important to invest in our workforce to benefit the clients that agencies are serving and also benefit the workers themselves and make them feel more invested and supported. So this question is for everyone. We heard a lot of hope on this, a lot of programs we're creating and that are doing really meaningful work. I also know on a lot of people's minds, we're all feeling the increasing economic pressures nationally and locally. And those engaged with SNAP and Medicaid as providers and recipients are concerned about upcoming changes. This question is for everyone, but what are you thinking about regarding your programs and other workforce development programs in this moment? Shelby will, or I guess if anyone can jump in, we'll start with Shelby maybe as a start, but also if the other one wants to jump.
Yeah, happy to jump in. Yeah, I think the hard truth is that the bottom is falling out for a lot of people, and that communities that were already economically disenfranchised are going to be the hardest hit. And so creating registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship pathways into family sustaining jobs is more important than ever. And I'll particularly emphasize the pre-apprenticeship side that can really create the connection between communities that are hardest hit to that entry point into registered apprenticeship. I'll also say on the employer side, registered apprenticeship is a very cost-effective workforce development strategy, and it's proven to have a return on investment. There are, academic studies that show at least a 44% return on investment for employers for registered apprenticeship. 70% of the employers we worked with last year said they saw an increase in the quality of applicants, and 70% said they had an increase in retention of apprentices as employees. And as belts tighten in some industries, I think that this is just an investment that makes sense. And at Building Futures, we love to work with employers, with institutions like Rhode Island College and Progresso Latino to really set up those programs that can create that entry point into family sustaining careers for folks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shelby. Claudia and Tanya, any thoughts on this? I know you have many thoughts on this.
Yes, I'm thinking about access, stability, and jobs. Access because there has been a reduction in funding. There are constant threats of cuts, and we have seen limitations for those with work permits. Certainly at Progresso Latino, this is and across the state and across our nation. Actually, it's a very present issue with people who have work permits and are able to legally work, but their immigration status is yet to be determined. All of these issues, it leads to less access for workforce programs. However, at Progresso, we continue to advocate for our community and, quite honestly, to do more with less, while also tapping into resources from other organizations such as the ones represented here today. And then my second thought is stability, because people need to feel safe and stable in order to get an education, in order to go to work, or perhaps start a business, going into apprenticeship program, or whatever it is their journey is taking them. Um, all of this impacts workforce development. But at Progresso, what we stress to our community is that we have resources. We have an immigration department that offers a safe space to ask questions, get advice, fill out paperwork at very low to reduce costs or no cost at all. We also have social services department. We have a domestic violence program, a food pantry that sees over anywhere from 300 to 400 people a day. And we also have an adult education department with job development in order to holistically serve people's needs. And lastly, I'm thinking about jobs because people need jobs. We all need jobs in order to live and to achieve our goals and to have stability. At Progresso, we have a job development program called the Job Club, and it helps people with resumes, mock interviews, job applications, anything that our community needs in order to connect to sustainable jobs. Our workforce program and our adult education programs are anchored by the Job Club because our end goal is for our community to connect to better paying jobs, careers, and higher education, or any other path that that they are willing to take. We are there to serve them.
And I'll jump in. So the themes of capacity building and sustainability have kind of been put forth. And I couldn't agree with those more. We have been impacted by some of the cuts at the federal level with grants. And certainly at the state level, funding that has historically supported workforce development programs is less than what it has been. And it continues to look like it's trending down instead of even being able to stay neutral. And sometimes when that happens in this workspace with folks who do the work that Shelby and Claudia and I do, people kind of dig in and they start to kind of hold everything to themselves. What this time really calls for is us to take a look of the lay of the land and what's out there and to come together in partnership, specifically around sharing the resources, but I would say even more importantly around collaborative advocacy for these changes, whether they be at the consumer level, at the workforce level. And one example of this that comes to mind and may resonate with some of the folks here today are the Medicaid cuts to the community health workers of Rhode Island, which have been a drastic response to the original standards that were issued that really seem to reflect the impact and the diversity of work that community health workers do to really help people. And with the pullback on that, it was really beautiful back in May to have such a wonderful and strong presence of people from across that community coming together and advocating, and then again continuing to submit written comments and suggestions in partnership with Medicaid, because it's not an us and them, we're all in this together. And unless we're having open dialogue and co-informing each other, it's easy to make decisions that maybe don't reflect the reality of the workforce. And so if anything, for me, and my background in social work kind of calls me to this perspective, but this is a time for together, not separate, not contention. It's a time for partnership. And you know, we have tried to get really creative on the Community Health Work Association website. We have a job page. Anybody in the community could reach out with a posting or say, hey, I need to fill a position. So we try to provide that type of a resource. And then also for folks who are not familiar with RIPIN's Alliance for Community Health Work Employers, that's another great resource. They're doing some amazing work. I'm proud to be a partner of the Alliance, and they represent, where Shwari represents the workforce, the Alliance is representing the employers. And it's just another great example of the power of together. And so while things feel very daunting, and I can feel that very personally here in my own workspace, having had 2 grants close prematurely and having lost staff. Times like this don't call for hopelessness. They call for us to get creative, to get motivated, and to get together. And I hope that in Rhode Island, we see more of that happening, because it's not going to stay this way, and we have the power to move it in a better direction.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your call to hope and to working together. And sorry, my video looks a little silly right now. But thank you all so much. And I really appreciate the hearing of togetherness. And for folks on the call, we will share out some links that that Tanya mentioned, and also Claudia and Shelby mentioned, to some of those partnership opportunities and how to get in touch with them, because I'm sure folks are feeling excited and jazzed up, as I know I am. So we want to open it up to questions. We have about 10 minutes left. So we will open it up to Q&A. So you're welcome to raise your hand, or you can request to unmute yourself, or you can type it in the Q&A section, whatever it feels good for you. I'll give it a second to let people think of your questions. All right, so while we're waiting for some questions, I have another question. And so this gives you all a little more time to get some questions as well. So Tanya mentioned a little bit about how the one cycle of the behavioral health program was closing. In terms of if people want to partner with you, I know you all are thinking about partnerships. What would partnering with you look like, and how could folks engage more in your work? This is for everybody.
Jump in first. I'm thinking about our apprenticeship programs, and I received an email last night from someone who went through it, was an apprentice, completed, and then after over a year was promoted to a higher level position, and now is reaching out and saying, gee, is there any way we can bring more of our staff to that apprenticeship program because it really worked? And so sometimes people reach out as staff, other times it's employers, but the partnership is the same. The dialogue is one that's really comprehensive with both staff and employers to make sure that they know what the process is. And even when grant funding that develops an apprenticeship goes away, the goal is to build it so that it's sustainable beyond those grant funds. And so if people are interested in learning more about the behavioral health case management or the community health work apprenticeships, which are 2 HRSA grants whose funding has ended for new candidates, but for whom training will still be available in apprenticeship support. I would love to have conversations with people. For our active apprenticeship, the peer recovery specialists, we are looking for people who are already certified community health workers or who are willing to become certified as community health workers as part of their training process. We can share, especially once our standards get approved, we'll be able to share the competencies and so forth. But we have materials, Allie, that we give to folks that lay out their responsibilities both as employers and as apprentices. And it's a partnership throughout that 12 months, sometimes more, to get people from point A to point B, and then to celebrate people's matriculation from apprentice to employer and to employee who has that full set of knowledge and skills that they need to be successful.
And I'll just jump in and broaden that invitation. If you're an employer who's interested in setting up a really time-tested, high-quality talent development pipeline, we would love to help you set up a registered apprenticeship program. We've set it up in 50 occupations at this point. Healthcare, education, but also commercial fisheries, aquaculture, manufacturing, you name it, any occupation that takes a year or more to learn, it can be a registered apprenticeship. And this is a really amazing model. So at Building Futures, we provide free technical assistance to help you set up that program, walk you through A to Z, and really get you to the finish line in terms of setting it up. And then once you're operating it, we're still available to continue to support. And then I would also say, in terms of partnership, community-based organizations, if you want to chat about connecting to registered apprenticeships or even exploring a pre-apprenticeship, we would love to talk with you about that. And then if you know people in your life who are interested in the trades, who are interested in work that's hands-on, you can send them our way too for our in-house training programs. We have a youth program for people who are 18 to 24. And then we have our community-based pre-apprenticeship, which I've already talked about. And we have rolling orientations a few times a year for both of those programs.
I also echo what my colleagues have said. A partnership can look like whatever benefits our community. We're also open to working with employers. We have a large talent pool in our job club, people who are looking for work. We're also open to bilingual programming that helps the community. We're open to many different options. We want to grow beyond our mental health. We have had in the past a medical assistant, and we have had business management and different programs, but funding is always a challenge. The next step in our program is always a challenge, but we're always open to um, connecting with community partners, with employers, with members of the community in general, and they be the ones that guide our work. So
Awesome.
we'll share
Sorry.
information at the end, and happy to connect. Thank you.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm feeling so hopeful based on all the awesome work you all are doing. So we have a question from Layla. Do you have any advice on how to build relationships with potential employers? I think this question is for anyone who wants to jump on it. Or if anyone wants more clarification too.
I would say that the first thing is understand who the partner is and reach out to them. And if they're not familiar with who you are or what your organization does, suggest to them why you would like to get them to know them better. In my experience, everything that is worth doing and that positively impacts someone is about relationships. So it's about reach out and start the conversation, and then from there, find those commonalities. It starts with a conversation, and sometimes you have to be the one to initiate it, but good things come after that point.
Thank you so much. Yes, Shelby.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in to say registered apprenticeship is employer driven. So it is designed to meet the needs of the employer in terms of their workforce. And we work with, 50 plus employers across the state in non-trade apprenticeship. So if you are with a community-based organization that's interested in making more connections to registered apprenticeship employment, please reach out and we would love to have that conversation.
Awesome.
Same for
Thank
us.
you.
I echo what my colleagues have said also. And a partnership can look to fill the needs of the employers. Essentially, what Tanya said, it's a matter of building relationships, understanding what their needs are, and connecting the two. Our programs are also employer driven. I failed to mention our ServeSafe and our hospitality program as well. We work with our hospitality collaborative, and our curriculum and all our program is employer driven.
Amazing. So we're going to close it out with our last question from Arthur, who asks, can you speak to how apprenticeship can be a viable pathway for people who are justice involved? So people who have been involved with the criminal justice system.
Yeah, I can jump on that. And Arthur actually helped us start a program that speaks directly to this question. So thank you, Arthur, and thank you for being here. So we have a program right now at the ACI called Building Futures Inside. It's a program that further extends that pathway into building trades careers for people who are currently incarcerated. So while people are incarcerated, we have a program behind the walls that, again, provides exposure to construction careers, provides people with readiness skills. We do a lot of math tutoring. And then once folks are released, they can come to our community-based pre-apprenticeship and get that kind of simulation of the work experience. And then once they graduate, we place them in a registered apprenticeship program. So we've run 5 cohorts of that program so far and have really seen a lot of success with it. Of everyone who's been released, everyone has had the option to come to our community-based peer apprenticeship. A vast majority have graduated are either placed or are in the process of being placed in registered apprenticeship. So it's a real second chance pathway for people. And it really just formalizes what we've been doing for the past 18 years with our community-based pre-apprenticeship, where 37% of the folks who have gone through that pre-apprenticeship and been placed in employment are formerly incarcerated. So the building trades, I think, are a key example of an apprenticeship that is a bona fide second chance pathway, but other apprenticeships can be that as well. we can create those pathways for people who are reentering into registered apprenticeship programs, and we want to do more of that.
Can I add a perspective? So just quickly, in addition to the work I do here at the college, I also serve on the Rhode Island Parole Board. And I have to tell you how exciting it is to receive letters from the staff at Building Futures as people come before us for parole, and to really not only see how well they're doing and what they're learning and the opportunities that are available to them, but to also hear the changes in people's voices about their acknowledgement of their own potential and the hope that they have to leave their sentence and go towards something that has the ability to really transform their lives. And I served this past Wednesday, and there were several people who had been involved on the program on the inside, who had letters, and who were really hoping that they would have the opportunity to have parole so that they could join. I think there's a class coming up in January. And so the transformative nature of this is so impactful. And I think it should be a reminder to the broader workforce that unless we start to really open up opportunities for people with incarceration histories, we are just really subjugating them to repeating the patterns. If nobody will hire someone who has been incarcerated, they really have no options. And then we are at fault for not giving them a chance. And so I applaud Building Futures for the amazing work that they do. And Arthur, it's really nice to see you here today, to see your name. I was very excited.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Tanya. And I should just say, Rhode Island's recidivism rate is 46, 47%. It varies a little bit year to year. Building Futures, our recidivism rate for folks who have come through our program is far under 10%, likely under 5%. And that's what we're seeing with now this new cohort of folks coming through Building Futures inside too, which I think just demonstrates that when people have economic opportunity, it disrupts that cycle and really creates the pathway into economic stability.
Amazing. I love, Tanya, you're sharing your perspective on the parole board, and also Shelby, that's really, really helpful to understand. And thank you for diving into that more. And thank you, Arthur, for the question. So as we're at 9:30, I want to take the opportunity to thank our panelists for their time, insight, and expertise this morning. I also want to thank all of you who took time out of your Friday morning to join us, and those of you who asked questions, thank you for them. We hope you'll consider joining us at a future Fresh